Today I am going to start a new series that biotechnology and human welfare. So today it's first episode that includes the biological fuel generation and environmental biotechnology. Before we start this series, actually I want to share something very basic that what is actually biotechnology. And I am your host Deepak Verma. To answer what is biotechnology, the simplest answer is the use of biology to develop technologies and products for the welfare of human being is known as biotechnology. This is the easiest or simplest definition for the biotechnology. It has various applications in different fields such as therapeutics, diagnostics, processed food, waste management, energy production, genetically modified crops, etc. So, one by one, we will discuss everything here. So, now we start with the biological fuel generation. So, under the main topic, biological fuel generation, I will cover these 6 subtopics: global warming and the significance of fossil fuel, photosynthesis, then biofuel, then bioethanol, then biodiesel, and the last, what's the next. So one by one, we will discuss everything. So first, global warming and the significance of fossil fuel. So energy for industrial, commercial, and residential purpose, electricity generation and transportation is primarily supplied by fossil fuel, coal, gas and oil, and nuclear power. It is now widely believed that climate change is strongly linked to the increased level of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and that human activity, especially through the combustion of fossil fuels, is a major contributing factor. One of the main greenhouse gas accounting for 65% of global warming is carbon dioxide. Fossil fuels are the stored energy in for or ancient sunlight of eons and millennia ago that mankind has been burning extensively over a few centuries and more prolifically in recent decades. When such fossil fuels are burned for energy, carbon dioxide that has been locked away for those years is released into the atmosphere, greatly adding to global greenhouse gases. In contrast, when a present day plant material is burned, the carbon locked into the biomass for a relatively short period of time is released back into the atmosphere, thus recycling the carbon dioxide. Consequently, the system is relatively carbon neutral, unlike the burning of fossil fuels. Fossil fuel energy sources have been the lifeblood of all industry civilization and have greatly contributed to the current concern over greenhouse gases. While most industrialist nations are now attempting to curtail their carbon emission, it is now required of them to help developing economy who seeks to improve living standard by assessing them to bypass their current use of inefficient and dirty energy technologies that fueled the industrious development of the former but mortgage the environmental in the process. Now we move to the photosynthesis part. Throughout the world, plants and algae perform a chemical reaction that cannot be repeated by laboratory chemistry. They use energy from sunlight to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. The enzyme responsible for the water splitting reaction is a photooxidase reductase. Within the photosynthetic cell, hydrogen will combine with carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to produce a myriad of organic carbon containing compounds including sugar, starch, proteins, etc., on which life throughout the world depends. The oxygen released into the atmosphere is essential for most forms of the life on the planet, while it is also helps to maintain the ozone layer that protects the planet from the damaging ultraviolet radiation. Photosynthetic organisms, both terrestrial and marine, can be considered as continuous solar energy converts that constantly renewable. Plant photosynthesis alone fixes about 2 into 10 to the power 11 tons of carbon with an energy content of 2 into 10 to the power 21 joule, which represents about 10 times the world's annual energy use and 200 times our food energy consumption. The magnitude and role of photosynthetic has gone largely unappreciated because we use such a small proportion of fixed carbon. Let it not be forgotten that photosynthesis in the past provided all the present fossil carbon source, namely coal, oil, and natural gas. Thus, photosynthetically derived biomass that exists in many available forms in the environment could well be transformed into storage fuels and chemical feedstocks such as bioethanol, biodiesel, and methane gas. The actual efficiency of solar energy captured by green plants can be as much as 3 to 4%. The more effective photosynthetic plants such as maize, sorghum, and especially the sugarcane being the most productive. Fossil fuel rivers have finite nature. The term peak oil has been coined to identify the point in which the future when for example, oil production will peak and start to decline. Taken in association with the current dramatically increase in industrialization in, for example, China and India, this is generating growing economic and trade pressure for alternative and reliable supplies for energy. This is over and above the continuing world concern about global warming. Biomass can be considered as renewable energy source and can be converted into either direct energy or energy carrier compound by direct combustion, anaerobic digestion system, destructive distillation, gasification, chemical hydrolysis, and biochemical hydrolysis, which I have seen here in this figure. Next is the biofuel from the biomass. Bioenergy, or we can say biofuels, is basically the production of combustible or usable energy from the biological source. This can be liquid fuel in form of bioethanol, biodiesel, gaseous fuels such as methane, or direct solid heat energy, that is wood. So many wood crops such as elder, willow, and birch, which can be readily copied, can be grown to offer direct fuel source to use power stations to generate electricity. Some considerable success has already been achieved in Canada, the other part of Europe, with considerable redundant farmland resulting from reduction in certain civilization. This land could be used to cultivate woody perennials or copied trees for fuel energy production. So this table here is showing some very important biological energy source from the crops. See here, sugar crops such as sugar cane, sugar beet, sugar extract, and the fermented to bioethanol, and same starch crop, maize, barley, wheat, oat, cassava, and etc. Cellulose crops such as straw, biogas, and oil crops, organic waste, complex microbial fermentation to methane or methanol, and solid energy crops, these trees, sorghum, reeds, and very other etc. So now we move to our discussion to the bioethanol from the biomass. The production of alcohol by fermentation of sugar and starch is an ancient art and is often considered to be one of the first microbial process used by humans. Production of industrial alcohol by fermentation drawn heavily upon the accumulating knowledge of brewer and the distiller. At present, industrial alcohol production is largely synthetic, that is non-microbial, deriving from petrochemical process. Petrochemical ethanol is made by the hydration of ethylene, and the decline of microbial production of alcohol dates from the large-scale production of ethanol from the 1940s. Within these 60-70 years of development of large-scale petroleum cracking, industrial production of fermentation alcohol fell below potable alcohol production in the most industrialized nation. Thus, in technologically more advanced countries, ethanol is produced by chemical means. In many developing countries where cheap raw materials are available, ethanol is still produced for industrial purpose using traditional fermentation technique. While the benefits of ethanol as a fuel are considerable, it is energy efficient, do not produce toxic carbon monoxide during combustion, and is therefore much less polluting than the conventional fuels. It is still cheaper to produce ethanol from oil chemically than by fermentation process at current oil price. In this way, ethanol uses as with other alternative fuels is economically hindered in the industrialized countries until oil price once again take up on upward rise. It, it is inevitable that it will happen, but exactly when is hard to predict. However, the world concern of global warming is now dramatically influencing fuel choice. To, to make available the necessary fermentation sugar, see, I have mentioned it here in this table here. Most raw material require some degree of pre-treatment depending on their chemical composition. With sugar cane, this treatment is minimal and consists mainly of the usual milling operation, whereas corn or cassava containing starch required the action of suitable saccharifying agent, either acid or hydrolysis or enzyme hydrolysis. Cellulose raw materials such as timber and straw required more extensively pre-treatment, and this is reflected in the increased energy input required as flow. A flow diagram. I have to. I want to. I have to show you this one. A flow diagram for the production of ethanol from the diverse substance is shown in here. So here see this ethanol, some feedstocks are there: molasses, canned juice, starch, cellulose, then preparation, hydrolysis, clarification, filtration and pasteurization. Then it's come to the fermentation. Then fermentation, directly we go to the distillation, or we can CO2 and yeast. Then it comes to the ethanol distillation, dehydration, then denaturation, and then we isolate that this absolute alcohol, and then stillage, then concentrated in, we use that fertilizer, feed, fuels and methanols. So this is the flow diagram of the production of alcohol. Now we move to the biodiesel one. Conventionally, diesel, an important transportation fuel, is a byproduct of a crude oil distillation process, which also results in the formation of petrol and has a high aromatic and sulfur content. In contrast, biodiesel is produced from vegetable oil and is now a viable alternative to conventional diesel fuel. The most successful method of producing biodiesel is a transesterification of plant oil with methanol or ethanol in the presence of catalyst sodium hydroxide at 50 degrees centigrade, resulting in the formation of fatty acid, methyl ester and glycerol. The glycerol is allowed to settle and biodiesel purified and used directly or a mixture with diesel as a fuel. Biodiesel has chemical characteristics similar to those of conventional diesel fuel in terms of combustion within modern diesel engines. The oil that can be used to include rapeseed, soybean, canola, and also waste cooking oils. The methanol is readily obtained from natural gas, biogas, or coal, while the glycerol is valuable and easily sealable byproduct, which can offset some of the production cost. This basic method is now widely used throughout the world, especially in the part of Europe and the USA. What are main advantages of biodiesel over the fossil fuel derived diesel? See, these I have written here. This reduce the dependence on fossil fuel use or imports, has a lower flash point and does not ignite, free of toxin, aromatic and sulfur compound, and most importantly, this is biodegradable. That is reducing environment damage due to spillage. And that I come that I have to discuss is this in bioremediation. And this last, this biodiesel is renewable. So conventional diesel engine do not require modification to run on biodiesel used alone or blend with diesel. The fuel economy and power generated by are relatively similar. The most important accolade is the unlikely diesel. There is no net increase in carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere with combustion. That is, it's a carbon neutral. Now we move to the next point. Now we will discuss the way ahead for the biofuels. What energy needs the at present are dominated by the continuity adaptability of the fossil fuels. The same fossil fuel that we now realize are causing continued and permanent damage to the world climate. The ability of biofuels to realistic enter the energy market will determined by several factors. A The first point is the availability of the existing energy chain to the biofuel. Next is the resistance to the adoption of biofuel by the current energy management. Then the next is the ability of to reduce the cost of biofuels, and the last is the retrofitting of the existing energy supply chain to accommodate biofuels. The entry of biofuel to the current energy supply system will be shown and gradual, but the world must start the slow process of weaning itself from the total dependence on fossil fuels. While there will continue to be interchange politically, industrial, and commercially obfuscating, which may be hinder optimal crisis management of the global energy situation. There are also some positive indicators coming from established world renewable energy companies. For example, BP plan to establish a dedicated bioscience energy research laboratory to the attached to a major US Academy Center and spending of 500 million over the next 10 years. Aspect Now the three aspects of the energy bioscience will be explored right now. Number one is the developing the new biofuel components and improving the efficiency and flexibility of those currently blended with the transport fuel. Next, devising new technologies to enhance and accelerate the conversion of organic matter to biofuel molecule with the aim of increasing the proportion of a crop that can be used to produce feedstock. And the last is the using modern plant science to develop species that produce a higher yield of energy molecules and can be grown on land not suitable for the food production. A final question must be considered here: how eco-friendly are the biofuels? So, advocates of biofuels consider them ecologically alternative to the fossil fuel. Since they are primarily manufactured by plants and when utilized as fuel, the carbon emitted is recycled back into the plant. They are carbon neutral. However, life cycle studies which examine the overall energy balance for industrial individual biofuel have identified many aspects of net energy input in the making of a biofuel, the type of plant, that is sugarcane, corn, soybean, lignocellulose, level of fertilizer required, collection and transport to the refinery, pre-treatment need, that is mechanization, enzymatic acid hydrolysis, biofuel recovery, byproduct purification and valorization, waste treatment, and finally biofuel storage and distribution. Furthermore, how much land can be used for biofuels without affecting food production for the world's expanding population? So these are the some questions. However, all these apparent net energy input drawbacks to large scale bioenergy crops, while real, do not take into the consideration future advance in plants and agriculture biotechnology, the potential use of genetically modified plants, enhanced bioprocess technology, improved carbon fixation of photosynthesis, improved enzymology and nitrogen fixing pathways in bioenergy crops. So this is the energy part of biotechnology side. Now we enter a new topic, that is environmental biotechnology. So as society throughout the world are increasingly moving to greater level of urbanization and industrial development, public concern is mounting over the state of environment, and such attention is now being given to improving the environment for future generation. To achieve this, there is being, particularly in developed nation, major environmental legislation directly towards liquor, solid and hazardous waste. In most developing countries, the situation is less encouraging when financing is limited or not available for the construction of water and waste treatment facilities. That are there is a shortage of trained personnel to operate the system. Furthermore, in many developing countries, there is a lack of official regulations and control system. No administration body is responsible for waste control and little obligation for existing and emerging industries to dispose the water properly. Also, it is in such countries that there is a greatest movement towards urbanization and new industrial development with concomitant destruction of the environment. So here I have, so I want to show this picture. This is a neutral microbial biodegradation of the organic molecule. So here, actually, this the motto of showing this picture here is to the presence and the functioning of microbial communities affected our everyday lives in so many ways, but none more than their role in soil waste and water management. Historically, the need to supply population with a safe drinking water and acceptable sewage disposal has mainly been the concern of sanitary engineers. More recently, skills and knowledge of the microbiologist and increasingly being employed to develop new systems. Microbial ecology is a science that studies the interrelationship between microorganisms and their living, biotic and non-living abiotic environments. The increasing scientific and public awareness of microbial ecology since 1980s derives mainly the recognition of the central role of microorganisms in maintaining sorry, good environmental quality. It is the microbes in their multivarious forms that are largely direct to orderly flow of material and ecology energy. through the world's ecosystem by the way their immense and varied metabolic ability to transform inorganic and organic materials. Microbial ecology is an extremely relevant scientific discipline and proven practical application and must be seen as one of the most critically scientific approaches to the environmental problems. Biodegradation can be defined as the decomposition of substance by microbial activities, either by single organism or but most often by microbial consortia. I discussed in later in biodegradation. Microorganisms found in soil and water will attempt to utilize any organic substance encountered as a source of energy and carbon by enzymatically breaking them down into the simple molecules that can be absorbed. Under suitable environment condition, all neutral organic compounds should be degraded, as I shown in here this figure. And for this reason, large-scale deposits of naturally forming organic compounds are rarely observed. When such organic deposits do occur, it has been under condition hostile to the biodegradation. So this environmental biotechnology will include the application of biological system and process in waste treatment and management and for the protection and restoration of the quality of environment. Many successful biotechnological processes have now been developed for water, gas, soil and solid waste treatments. Modern developments in environmental biotechnology now focus on the process optimization and will no longer accept processes that are inefficient and sometimes merely transform one problem into the another. So the term biodegradable is often loosely identified with the term environmentally friendly, and numerous advertising companies and products packaging have put across the message that because of the product is biodegradable and impact of the environment will be dramatically reduced. This is not always the case, and demonstration of product biodegradability have often been achieved under highly conductive microbial conditions not easily met the natural environment. Furthermore, biodegradability is itself a complex multifactorial event whose mechanisms are not completely understood. A range of environmental waste treatment technologies will now be examined. How this examined? Now we will see in the next slide. So first we comes to the wastewater and sewage treatment. While many ancient civilizations had an appreciation of the need of product of quality of water to be used for human consumption, it was not until 1855 that was demonstrated that cholera was transmitted by water contaminating by feces. A similar route for typhoid fever was shortly to be demonstrated. By the end of 19th century, the microbial ecology of many human diseases had been shown to have an anal-oral route of transmission, which finally confirmed the health hazards associated with water contaminated with feces. The introduction of sewage system into the developed society during the 19th century allowed for the first time the possibility to treatment of municipal and industrial waste before discharging into the natural water system. Growth in human population has generally been matched by the concomitant formation of wider range of waste products, many of which cause serious environmental pollution if they are allowed to accumulate in the ecosystem. In rural communities, recycling of human, animal and vegetable waste has been practiced for centuries, providing in many cases valuable fertilizers or fuels. However, it was also a source of disease to humans and animals by residing pathogenicity of enteric bacteria. In urban communities where most of the deleterious waste accumulate, efficient waste collection and specifically treatment process have been developed. since it is impractical to discharge high volume of waste into the natural land and water. The introduction of these practices in the last centuries was one of the main reasons for the spectacle improvement in the health and well-being in the developed countries. Here, the development of these sewage system was an early example of biotechnology. Indeed, in volumetric terms, biological treatment of domestic wastewater and sewage in the industrialized nations is by far the largest biotechnology industry and the least recognized by the lay people. Controlled use of microorganisms has led to the virtual elimination of such waterborne diseases as typhoid, cholera, or dysentery in these communities. Yet, if water and sewage treatment are seriously interrupted, major epidemics may quickly develop, as witnessed in 1960s in Switzerland, where typhoid developed following the breakdown of water treatment plant. Thus, biotechnology not only generates a whole new range of useful products, but it also plays an indispensable part throughout the water and sewage treatment process in the reduction of infectious disease of humans and animal. So the biological dispose of organic waste is achieved in many ways throughout the world. A widely used practice for sewage treatment is shown here in this figure. This is a complex but highly successful system involving a series of three stages of primary and secondary processing followed by a microbial digestion. An optional tertiary stage of involving chemical precipitation may be included. The primary activity is to remove the coarse particle and the soluble, leaving the dissolved organic material to be degraded or oxidized by microorganisms in the highly aerated open bioreactor. This secondary process requires considerably energy input to drive the mechanical aerators that actively mix the whole system, ensuring regular contact of the microorganism with the substrate and air. The microorganisms multiply and form biomass or sludge, which can either be removed and dumped or passed to an anaerobic digester bioreactor, we can say that, and will be reduce the volume of solid, the odor and number of pathogen microorganisms. A further useful feature is the generation of methane or biogas, which can be used as a fuel. However, the value of biogas is marginal because its content of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide. Okay. So here, what are the future areas? This question arises. So to answer this, microbiological effluent treatment will be the major field of biotechnological interest in the future. Integrated system will be developed for treating complex waste. The role of biocatalyst or microbe will constantly reassessed. Biotechnologists are now designing increasingly specific and efficient bioreactor to contain selected consortia of microorganisms best adapted to a range of different waste streams. In countries with high annual hours of sunlight, there has been considerably development of combined algal or bacterial system for waste and water treatment. Such process can lead to a formation of relatively pure water and alga or bacterial biomass, which may be used for animal feeding, biogas formation, or perhaps more ambitiously for bulk organic chemical formation. A comparison of several widely used treatment processes for liquid waste is shown here. This table, where aerated lagoons, activated sludge, trickling filter, and rotating biological containers are described here. what are their advantage and what are their drawbacks. And this table defines the various operating components. Water is now being recognized as an increasingly expensive component of many industrial processes. Industrial worldwide use vast quantity of water is their manufacturing process, such as steels, textile, food, etc. For example, if each tons of steel produce approximately 280 tons of water will be used. In the past, many these industries simply discharge the wastewater into the water courses, often resulting in inextensively downriver or estuarine pollution. Stringent anti-pollution laws together with greatly increased water charge have prompted such companies to develop new wastewater treatment systems that function in a closed-up loop manner. Almost two-thirds of the water consumption worldwide is utilized for agricultural irrigation. In many cases where water is short supply, raw domestic sewage is used, which invariably lead to the crop contamination with human pathogenic virus. In such places, it is important to develop wastewater process that will produce pathogen-free wastewater without losing the essential nitrogen and phosphorus content required as fertilizers. So here this treatment and their definitions are written here. This is important. You can note it down. Now we move to the landfill technologies. Solid waste account for an increasing proportion of the waste streams generated by modern urban society. While part of this material will be made up of glass, plastic, etc., is a considerably proportion which will be decomposable solid organic materials such as paper, food waste, sewage waste from the large scale poultry and pig farms, and in particular our country cattle feed lot waste. There are now many strategies available for solid waste management, such as primary recycling or selecting out from the waste stream material for direct reuse, metal, or secondary recycling by mechanical grinding for reuse, and tertiary recycling that in creation is only the considerable recycling if the calorific value of the waste is recovered to generate heat or electricity, and finally landfilling, which is least desirable for recycling. Improperly prepared and operated landfill steps may be result in toxic heavy metals, hazardous pollutant, and products of anaerobic decomposition seeping from the site to in underground aquifers and subsequently polluting urban water supply. Properly constructed and sealed landfill site, as seen in here can be used to generate methane gas for commercial use. Much effort is now made to use strong impermeable linear to avoid leaching, damaging surrounding land and water courses. Now we move to the composting. Composting is an anaerobic microbial driven process that converts solid organic waste into the stable sanitary humus-like material that has been considerably reduced in bulk and can be safely returned to the environment. It is in fact a low moisture solid substrate fermentation process as landfill technology. To be totally effective, it should only use as substrate readily decomposable solid organic waste. In large scale operations using largely domestic solid organic waste and final product is mostly used for solid improvement. But in more specialized operations using specific organic raw substrate, the final can be become the substrate for the worldwide commonly production of the mushroom. Composting has only recently become a serious waste management technology, and both theoretically and practical development of the technology is still its infancy. The primary aim of composting operation is to obtain a limited time within limited compost a final compost with a desirable product quality. A composting plant must function under environmentally safe conditions. Composting is carried out in a packed bed of solid organic particles in which the indigenous microbes will grow and reproduce. Free access to air is an essential requirement. The starting material are arranged in static piles, aerated piles or covered tunnels or in rotating bioreactors. Some of the pre-treatment of the waste may be required, such as particle size reduction by shredding or grinding. The basic biological reaction of the composting process is the oxidation of mixture organic substance with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide, water and other organic bioproducts. As I seen in here, after the composting process is completed, the final product most often needs to be left for variable time periods to be stabilized. Composting is undoubtedly one of the principal strategies for the solid organic waste treatment and recycling back into the environment. For future expansion of composting and recycling, four criteria will be required to achieve. Number one, a suitable infrastructure must be in place. Second, suitable quality and quantity of substrate must be available. Third, there must be market for the end product. And the last, process must be environmentally sound and demonstrate economical viability. Now we move to our last topic, the bioremediation. This is an important topic. The biodegradation. Biodegradation or biological degradation is the phenomena of biological transformation of organic compounds by living organisms, particularly the microorganism. Biodegradation basically involves the conversion of complex organic molecules to simpler or mostly non-toxic one. The term biotransformation is used for the incomplete biodegradation of organic compounds involving one or few reactions. Biotransformation is employed for a synthesis of commercially important products by microorganisms. Bioremediation refers to the process of using microorganisms to remove the environment pollutants such as toxic waste from the soil, water, air, etc. The microbes serve as scavengers in bioremediation. The removal of organic waste by microbes for environmental cleanup is the essential of bioremediation. The other name used for bioremediation, biotreatment, bioreclamation and biorestoration. It is rather difficult to show any distinction between biodegradation and bioremediation. Now we come to the xenobiotics. Xenobiotics or xenon foreign broadly refer to unnatural, foreign and synthetic chemicals such as pesticide, herbicide, refrigerant, solvent and other organic compounds. Microbial degradation of xenobiotic assumes significance since it is provide an efficient, effective and economically means of disposing of toxic chemicals, particularly the environmental pollutions. Pseudomonas the predominant microorganism for the bioremediation. So, member of genus Pseudomonas, a soil microorganism, are the most predominant microorganism that degrades xenobiotics. Different strains of Pseudomonas that are capable of detoxifying more than 100 organic compounds have been identified. The example of organic compounds are several hydrocarbons, phenols, organophosphate, polychlorinated biphenyls, PCB, and polycyclic aromatic and naphthalene. About 40 to 50 microbial strains of microorganisms capable of degrading xenobiotics has been isolated. Because Pseudomonas are good example of Mycobacterium, Allegenes, and Norcadia. There are a huge list of these organisms who can remove the pollutant chemicals. So now I am going to tell you about some basic definitions of some terms such as consortia. Consortia, a particular strains of microorganism may degrade one or more compounds. Sometimes, for degradation for single compound, the synergistic action of few microorganisms, that is a consortium or a cocktail of microbes, may be help. For instance, the insecticide or pesticide more efficiently degrade by the combination of Pseudomonas families. So, co-metabolism in biodegradation. In general, the metabolism or breakdown of xenobiotic is not associated with any advantage of microorganism. That is, pollutant chemical cannot serve as a source of carbon or energy for the organism. The term co-metabolism is often used to indicate the non-beneficial, that is used only for the microorganism, biochemical pathway concerned with the biodegradation or xenobiotics. However, co-metabolism depends on the presence of suitable substrate for the microorganism. Such compounds are referred as co-substrate. The factor affecting the biodegradation. Several factors influence biodegradation. These include the chemical nature of the xenobiotics, the capability of the individual microorganism, nutrient and O2 supply, temperature, pH, redox and redox potential. Among these, the chemical nature of the substrate that has been degraded is very important. Biostimulation. This is a process by which the microbial activity can be enhanced by increased supply of nutrients or by addition of certain stimulating agents such as electron acceptor or surfactants. Bioagglutination. It is possible to increase biodegradation through manipulation of genes. More details of genetic manipulation, that is genetically engineering microorganisms, are described later. Bioagglutination can also be achieved by employing a consortium of microorganisms. So, enzyme system for biodegradation. Several enzyme systems with independent enzymes that work together are extensive in microorganisms for the degradation of xenobiotic. The genes coding for enzyme of biodegradative pathway may be present on the chromosomal DNA or more frequently on the plasmid. In certain microorganisms, the gene of both chromosome and plasmid contribute to the enzyme of biodegradation. The microorganism Pseudomonas occupy a special place in this biodegradation. Reclaricant xenobiotics. There are certain compounds that do not easily undergo biodegradation and therefore persist in the environment for a long period, sometimes in years. They are labeled as recalcitrant. There may be several reasons for this resistance of xenobiotic to microbial degradation, such as they may be chemically or biologically inert, they are highly stable, Next point is the lack of enzyme system in the microorganism for degradation. Third point is they cannot enter microorganism being large molecule or lack of transport system. The next point, fourth point, is the compound may be highly toxic or result in the formation is highly uh, lethal that kill the microorganism. Now the biomagnification. This is the phenomena of progressive increase the concentration of the xenobiotic compound as the substance is passed through the food chain is referred as a biomagnification or bioaccumulation. For instance, the insecticide DDT is absorbed repeatedly by plants and microorganisms. When they are eaten by the fish and birds, this pesticide being recurrent accumulates and enters the food chain. Thus, DDT may find its entry into the various animals including man. DDT affects the nervous system and it has banned in most of the countries. Now we move to the how many types of the bioremediation. The most important aspect of the biotechnology is effective management of hazardous of toxic pollutant bioremediation. The environmental cleanup process through bioremediation can be achieved in two ways: in situ or ex situ bioremediation. So in situ bioremediation involves a direct approach for the microbial degradation of xenobiotic at the site of pollution, soil, groundwater. Addition to adequate quantities of nutrient at the site of promotes microbial growth. When these microorganisms are exposed to xenobiotic, they develop metabolic ability to degrade them. The growth of microorganisms and their ability to bring out biodegradation are dependent on the supply of essential nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, etc. In situ bioremediation has been successfully applied to clean up oil spillage, bleach. There are two types of in situ bioremediation: intrinsic or engineered one. So intrinsic bioremediation are ability of the microorganism to degrade certain pollutant. In fact, microorganisms can be treated the laboratory for their natural capability of biodegradation and applied appropriately utilized. While engineered one, they inherited ability of the microorganism for bioremediation is generally slow and limited. However, by using suitable physiochemical means, good nutrient and O2 supply, addition of electron acceptor, optimum temperature, the bioremediation process can be engineered or for more efficient degradation for pollutant. So what are the advantage of in situ bioremediation? So they are cost effective with minimum exposure to public and site personnel. And second point is the site of bioremediation remain minimal disrupted. And it has a disadvantage. It's very time consuming process. Number two, it is sites are directly exposed to the environmental factors, some temperature, O2 supply, etc. Now we move to the second point, the second type of it, the ex situ. The waste or toxic material can be collected from the polluted site and the bioremediation with the request microorganism, frequently consortium of organisms, can be carried out at designed place. This process is certainly an improvement over the in situ bioremediation and has been successfully used at some places. Some advantage is the better controlled and more efficient process. Process can be improved by enriched with desired microorganism. The third point is the time required in short, and disadvantage is they are very costly. Site of pollutions are highly distributed. And third point, there may be disposal problem after the process is complete. Genetic engineering for more efficient bioremediation. Although several microorganisms that can degrade a large number of xenobiotics have been identified, there are many limitations in this bioremediation, such as microbial degradation of organic compounds is very slow process. Next point is No single microorganism can degrade all the xenobiotic present in the environment pollution. Next point is that the growth of microorganism may be inhibited by the xenobiotics. So it is never possible to address all the above the limitation and carry out an ideal process of the bioremediation. Some attempts have been made in recent years to create genetically engineering microorganisms CEM to enhance bioremediation beside degrading xenobiotics which are highly resistant to breakdown. Some of these aspects are briefly described here. So first is the genetically manipulating by transfer of plasmid. The majority of genes responsible for the synthesis of biodegradative enzymes are located on the plasmid. It is therefore logically to think of genetic manipulation of plasmid. New strains of bacteria can be created by transfer of plasmid by conjugation carrying gene for different degradative pathway. If the two plasmid contain homologous region of DNA, recombination occurs between them, resulting in the formation of a large fused plasmid with the combined function of both plasmid. In case of plasmid who do not possess homologous DNA, they can coexist in the bacterium. The second point is the creation of superbug by transfer of plasmid. Superbug is a bacterial strain of Pseudomonas that can degrade camphor, octane, xylene, naphthalene. It's in this bacterium containing CAM, that camphor degrading plasmid, with conjugated with another bacterium with OCT, octane degrading plasmid. These plasmid are not compatible and therefore cannot coexist in the same bacterium. However, due to the presence of homologous region of DNA, recombination occurs between these two plasmids, resulting in a single CAM-OC plasmid. This new bacterium possesses the degradative genes for both camphor and octane. Development of salicylate toluene degrading bacteria by plasmid transfer. Some attempts have been made for the creation of new strains of bacterium Pseudomonas putea to simultaneously degrade toluene and salicylate. Toluene degrading TOL plasmid was transferred by conjugation to another bacterium that is capable of degrading salicylate due to the presence of SAL plasmid. These newly developed strains of Pseudomonas can be simultaneously degrade both toluene and salicylate, and this occurs even at low temperature 0 to 5 degrees centigrade. However, the new bacterium is not regular use as more research is being conducted on its merit and demerits. Genetic manipulation by gene alteration. So actually this work is in a process to manipulate more efficient biodegradation. The plasmid PWWO of Pseudomonas codes for 12 different enzymes responsible for the meta-cleavage pathway. So what is meta-cleavage pathway? This is actually conversion of catechol and procalculate to pyruvate and aldehyde for degradation of certain aromatic compounds. Some success has been reported to alter this gene to plasmid PWWO for more efficient degradation of toluene and xylene. The purpose of making this tutorial video is to seek attention has been made to various biotechnological that has used to reduce the impact of society waste on the environment. While economics is the determining force for most technological changes, effort towards the enhancing environmental biotechnology must surely be seen only as an add-on strategy. We elucidated how biotechnology with respect to environmental protection has three levels of the application. Pollution cleanup, for example, oil spills and detoxification of contaminated soil, treatment of domestic and industrial wastewater supplies. Next is the pollution control, for example, recovery of heavy toxic metals from minimum water, use of enzyme rather than chlorine in pump and paper manufacture. And the last thing, pollution protection. For example, closed cycling practice of enzyme production plant where raw material are renewable, waste material is the biodegradable sludge which can be used as a local fertilizer. So all the environmental biotechnology process and products can have negative implication as such risk must be balanced against ensuring being benefits. While such process must always be put through risk assessment, it is clear that in the light of awareness and technological realism, a great amount of existing and forthcoming environmental biotechnology should be capable of achieving maximum environmental safety. With these words, I'm I'm going to stop this topic. In the next video, we will start with a new topic, maybe agriculture or animals one. So that's it. Thank you for listening this video tutorial. Thank you very much.